Hi everybody, it's Daryl, and you should interpret this video as sort of a sarcastic comedy. Um, Try and talk about some things. I, I'm wearing a hoodie, and I don't like the way that it's sort of asymmetric. It's asymmetric. It's weird. Anyway, doesn't matter. Um, in the morning, in the morning, in the morning, ladies and gentlemen, I like to listen to. It doesn't matter. Um, I have a cup of coffee. I get up in the morning. I have a cup of coffee, and I look at social media on my computer. You know, because why not? It's cold. It's winter. I have coffee in the morning and look at social media in the summer too. Um, what do people I guess are trolling? They're trolling, right? People are trolling sometimes. They ask questions. They ask questions, and the idea is to get a reaction, I guess. It's trolling, I guess. Um, had to. I was talking into. There were a couple of threads that I was looking at. Somebody was saying this is good. This completely reasonable thing. They reached out and they said their daughter, I think, is a teenager. Maybe she's 13. Um, she wanted a stereo for her bedroom. She wanted a Walkman. I guess she's listening to old CDs. I'm guessing. I'm just gonna guess because I think the CD was invented when I was a little kid, and CDs were really expensive when I was a teenager. Um, both the pre-recorded album and um, the CD player itself were expensive. CD players are incredibly cheap now because they ended up getting used in computers, and when every computer had one, they learned how to make them so very cheaply. Uh, I did one at one time. I think I owned a Sony CD player, portable, like a Walkman one. I think it was like $40 or something. I think that's what it was. Um, I gave up on it anyway. I didn't really need it. I don't really listen to music while I'm walking around. I guess that's it. I've had other. I had a tape player when I was at high school, like a Walkman. I had a Panasonic one. It wasn't a Walkman brand. Didn't matter. A Panasonic one was solid. I found one in a second-hand shop for free. They gave it. It was free. They didn't even want money for it. They were like, nobody's going to buy that. I found one that was exactly the same model as I had when I was a teenager, and the person at the shop gave it to me for free. That's cool. It was $65 when I got it. I got it for my birthday. Can't remember how old I was. Maybe 14. Maybe 15. I remember taking it to high school. It cost a week's wages of my brother's wages. My brother just started working as a plumber. That's how I measure things. By the way, I think of what do things cost in terms of wages, because that's sort of just you look. Is it a day, a week, or a month's worth of wages? That's a way of pricing something. Okay. So at that time, that tape player cost a week's wages. when I was at university, my birthday came around again. I wanted something to play music in my room when I was at university. My parents bought a CD player for my birthday, just a, I don't know, they call it a boombox, I guess. I don't know, a portable CD player. It's got speakers in it. You carry it around. It's got a handle on the top. You've seen them. Don't worry about it. Cost $300. That was, I think, renting a room when I was at university was like $65 a week. So that's a lot. I think in terms of my brother's pay, it cost 2 weeks' wages. I'm using my older brother's pay because he had a job and I didn't really. But it gives you a scale. He would have been about 20 at that time. No, I was 20. He would have been like 23. Yeah, probably something around just a week's normal pay. I don't know, a week or two's normal pay. Doesn't matter. It gives you a ballpark idea. When I was working, I got a job. My first job, I got paid like $29,000 a year. It was about median wage. I worked at a technical IT company. I spent about 5 years working at IT companies. I bought a stereo. Cost $500. That was about a week's take-home pay. It was a Sony one. It was a particular model. It was a very interesting. It had a front-loaded CD. It was a very iconic design. They were rare. I think they cost more to make than what they sold them for. They didn't make or sell very many of them. They were trying to prove a point that they could make a thing that was an elegant design that sounded good, and they sold them at cost or something like that. So it's called CMT EX1. It cost a week's wages for me. I think actually I bought it when I was between jobs, so I was actually unemployed at the time. But because I was unemployed, I had a lot of spare time, so I wanted to listen to my music and have it sound kind of good. I had that stereo for 20-something years until not long ago. I was using it and I tripped over one of the wires. And the thing fell off the kitchen bench and smashed. So it's sad. It's broken. I haven't thrown it away. I thought I could fix it. It might be repairable. I don't know. What's the point? It has wooden speakers, okay? The reason why it sounds so good is that the speakers are half of the value of the thing. This is the thing. Here's the takeaway. It's taken me 10 minutes to get to it. When you buy a stereo, half of the money you spend should be speakers. The other half is everything else. Okay? And that's because the speakers are the thing that you hear the stereo with. If the speakers aren't good, then it doesn't matter how good all the other parts are. So a stereo system should be balanced. It should be balanced. But in the past, sometimes one particular component of the stereo was really expensive, like the CD player. So the one I got when I was at university, CD players they'd been around for a decade or so, 10, 12 years. So they'd got kind of cheap, but not actually really cheap. And they were cheap enough, right? But they would put them in stereos where the CD player component was the most expensive component and all of the other components were very cheap by comparison. So the stereo my parents bought for me, it was good. I chose it. I just chose the cheapest one. I didn't want to burden my parents with buying an unnecessarily expensive stereo. And it was all the case. if the balance of the system was that the CD player component was the most valuable part, you'd have to spend a lot more money to get better speakers. But now the CD player is a cheap part, or they don't even have one. It's got Bluetooth or something. And then the expensive part of a stereo is actually the speakers now. The electronics have become really cheap, but speakers are still technically difficult to build. They're made out of particular stuff. I do electronic stuff for a job, by the way. I know about electronics. I did a university degree in science. I did computer engineering and environmental physics and electronics. It's the stuff that I know about. So as a system, speakers have to be good. And then on top of that, one of my friends, he was really into hi-fi systems in the 1980s and 1990s, and he subscribed to those hi-fi magazines, and so he knew all the good stereo stuff, like what were the good speakers and what were the good amps. And there are particular models of speakers and amplifiers made in the 80s and 90s and probably early 2000s that are outstandingly good models. Like sometimes they would make a very good design. I can't remember. There's one down here. I can't read where the model number is. It's a Pioneer. I can't remember. I feel like it's got like something like X400 in its name. I can't read. The writing's too small and it's too dark down there. There's particular amps, and he said, buy this. It's a good stereo amplifier. It's very high quality. And it is, and I've had it for a decade or so, and it's amazing. It's legitimately hi-fi. So there's sort of like some quality standard on audio things about whether it's technically hi-fi or not, and I don't know how that's determined, but there are some models that are standout models that I guess hi-fi means it has something about the quality of the signal versus the noise. That's how a lot of electronics are. Signal to noise ratio. That's how computers and stuff work in a way. Yes, if the signals are of poor quality inside your computer will crash, and that's a bad computer. That's what I was trying to say. The smoothing of the power supply has to be good so that that doesn't induce noises in the circuitry that cause the computer to have calculating errors. I think that's true. So in stereos, the materials matter. And what my friend said is like it's very important that the speakers are heavy, because if they're heavy, then they won't move or flex when they make audio. Because if the speaker moves or flexes while it's making audio, then the audio will be distorted or rattle, and then you'll get noise, and that won't be good. That just won't sound good. And so speakers need to be heavy and robust. And so one of the best ways you can do that is to make them out of wood. Because you can put a lot of wood in and it's heavy, but wood's also, it's soft and warm and smooth as a material compared with plastics and metals, which are hard and brittle and tinny. And so you can say a stereo has a nice warm sound, it has a warm wooden sound, and that can be the warmness of a sound can be something about the components. So components can be harsh and sharp, or they can be rounded and warm. We use those words to describe sounds. You know, I've got a guitar, right? Here it's just right here. Here's a guitar. It's made out of wood and it's round. This is probably quite a tinny, cheap guitar, but it has some kind of warmness to it, and we use those words. The words mean things. Well, the words have meanings. It's round. See, it's round. It's round and it's wooden and it's warm. It's got, whatever, a lacquer finish on it or something, so you can't see that it's made out of wood, but you can see that it's wood on the inside. It's wooden. And so it has a mellow, warm, and rich sound. And that's true of wood. That's just true of wood. That's a property of wood. I've got a wooden house. You can see there's wood. The doors are made out of wood. It's warm. It's rich. It's warm and rich. It feels nice in this house. I've got wooden window frames that are old. It's warm. It's nice. It's organic. Some houses have metal window frames. They're glassy and plasticky and hard and reflective and harsh and brittle and tinny. My window frames are warm and rich, and they're not round, they're cut square. The words mean something. The words mean something. So you can identify bad stereos. If you buy a stereo where you get the stereo and the speakers in one big box, you can identify one that's not good, because the speakers will be lightweight, they'll be plasticky and tinny and echoey, and if you tap them, they'll sound brittle, and they won't sound warm and rich and bold and rounded. They sound harsh and crisp and tinny and scratchy. Not good properties. Not good properties. Sometimes you want accurate. Accurate can be hard. They made some speakers. There was a particular set of speakers that was made by some company, and they're considered really good, but people say they're accurate, and which means that the tweeters, they had titanium tweeters. It was one of the early models of titanium tweeters, but they sound harsh, and people after you listen to it, you can't listen for very long. You listen to 2 albums and it's exhausting. The audio's got a harshness to it that's it's not comfortable. It's uncomfortably harsh. It's accurate. The audio is made as best as it can be, and if you've got high frequencies recorded in your CD or your LP that you're listening to, or whatever source, your SACD or whatever, you'll hear those harsh sounds will be accurate, but it's not so comfortable. And they made another set of speakers that was another one where they changed the tweeters to be not as accurate. And the audio is not as accurate, but it's more comfortable. It's comfortable and it's warm, and that can be better. It can be nicer. It's more enjoyable. It's relaxing. So those things matter. They matter. They matter. They matter. If you want a good stereo, sometimes you'll ask somebody who knows about stereos. I'm not a stereo expert. I'm not a hi-fi fanatic or anything like that. But I listened to what my friend said. I listened to what he said. He was into all of that. He had I remember he had a stereo system in his living room that cost more than I earned in a year. That's quite a lot. That was a lot. I was earning quite a lot of money at that time. He had an older stereo in his bedroom and another one that was in his in the study, and both of those stereos still cost more than any amount of money I've ever spent on a stereo. Though both of those stereos cost more than all of the money I've ever spent on all the stereos I've ever owned. That's another way of saying it. So he knew about it, and he knew what the good things were. And he didn't buy them all new. He bought them when they were old, when they were 5 years old or 10 years old, some of them. I know that the one that was in the living room, he bought that new. But he imported the amplifier from overseas, and he imported the speakers from America. And he bought them cheaper than you could get them any other way. They're still expensive. They're good. Sounded amazing. He never needed to buy another one ever. After that, I remember he had that system for like 20 years or something. What else? I had my stereo for 20 years. It was pretty good. The one I've got now, I bought the components when they were about 20 years old, and I've had them for 10 years. Something like that. Something like that. That's how they go. If you buy good speakers, you hardly ever need to buy another set. I mean, you can wear them out. You can wear them out, or you can have an accident or something like that. You can break one. I've broken one of my good speakers. There's something wrong with it. I don't know what it is. I'll look at it one day. And figure it out. But I have some other ones. So I used another one in the meantime. I'll work it out one day. Doesn't matter. It's not a priority for me. The other person, they said something about going overseas to look at watches, which I think is weird because watches are portable. Can't you bring a watch to yourself? So I went online and I looked up 4K videos of watches, and you can find 4K videos of watches. I think you can learn more about a watch by seeing it in a video, because watches are small and detailed and you can get a better view of it in a 4K video. It doesn't matter. I went to a museum. I can't remember what it was called. It's called the British Museum, which is the museum of stuff that the British brought back from overseas. That's a way of looking at it. They had pieces of 8, like the silver pirate money, and they had it, and you could touch it. They had them. You could pick them up, and yeah. So that was something. There's something you can do in a museum some museums for some things. I don't know. I think if you went to a fancy watch museum, they probably wouldn't let you touch the watches. I think that they wouldn't. I feel like there might be some that they'd let you touch, but most of them you could just look at, and you'd probably have to look at them through glass. I don't know. I don't understand. I've been to museums in other countries. I went to that, whatever it was called, the British Museum, which is, I guess, the museum of the British Empire. I went to in Berlin. I went to a museum that's got steam engines and trains and vehicles and stuff in it. I went to that. A technology museum of some sort. I went to a tank museum in England where they have actual tanks. They actually demo them. They drive them around in they have a, I don't know, what do you call it? An arena. They have an arena, and they drive the tanks in the arena and show you how they work. They have like a grandstand stadium. I think they do shows. They did have one that they were driving around. They were just driving it. They weren't doing anything crazy with it, but they were just showing that it worked. It's a working tank. They had other tanks inside the museum. You could climb in them and stuff. Some of them you could touch. Some of them you weren't allowed to touch. But that's something, if you wanted to understand something from World War I or World War II or those times, you could go inside them. They had tanks from different countries. It was interesting. You could climb through some of them. I did that. Me and my friend did that. It was interesting, but mostly we looked at castles when we went overseas. Looked at castles and cities. We looked at cities. We went all around Europe. On high-speed electric trains. We spent 6 weeks or something, going around Europe on high-speed electric trains, looking at different cities, just going places and doing stuff, going for walks in the city and getting food at the local shop and going to a cafe or having a picnic or whatever. And Went to Versailles and Paris and Berlin and I don't know, Barcelona and Madrid and stuff. And then the main big cities, Bordeaux. Yeah, we just went to places. We went to because my friend's father, he was in World War II, so we went and looked at what is it called? Normandy, Omaha Beach, and all of that stuff. My friend was a big he liked history. He was into World War II history. He knew a lot about that. So we went and saw the things. We went and saw the things he wanted to see. We went to England as well. We went and saw stuff. I went to the town where my family's from in England. I went to the town where my family's from in Northern Ireland. Went and looked at those things. Went to those places. We found the house and the bridge. Found the bridge my great-grandfather built. That stuff. Went and looked at that stuff. You can touch them, castles and bridges. You can touch those things. And that's the thing. Sometimes you need to see it, but you need to be in it. You can be in a castle. We walked all through castles. We're in the castles. We walked through the ruins of castles and churches and cathedrals and stuff. Some of them still there, some of them torn down. Looked at all that stuff. It's interesting historical stuff. My friend knew the history of a lot of that English stuff. He knew a lot of his English history. So he explained, we walked through castles and he explained the stuff in the castles. It was good. We went to Stonehenge. We went to Stonehenge and we knew more about Stonehenge than the people who work at Stonehenge. There's a Stonehenge in New Zealand, but it's not a copy of Stonehenge in the UK. It's a newly built one.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Shut up. Watches are stupid when they shouldn't. I didn't talk to it. We went to Stonehenge. We went to Stonehenge in New Zealand, and the Stonehenge in New Zealand is newly built. It's made out of concrete, but it's built as an astronomical thing. It's set up in the location that it's set up in. Built for the local environment, so it works as instruments. You can do observations with it. You can observe the solstice and the equinox and star locations and things like that. They explain all of this. They explain it when you go to Stonehenge. It's called Stonehenge Aotearoa. Aotearoa is the Maori name for New Zealand or the North Island. It's in the North Island. It's 2-hour drive from where I live. I can drive there. Anyway, they explain what Stonehenge is. They explain what henge means, and they explain stone and wooden circles. Stone and wooden circles all over the world. All countries have these things. Maori people have them as well. Maori people in New Zealand. They're not. There's a lot of, what is it called? Some marae. So a marae is like the centre part of a Maori village where there's the town meeting house. Maybe I'm just using these words. If you're foreign, you won't know what a marae is. So you have a big house. It's called a wharenui. It's like literally big house. And on the front of it, on the lawn on the front, there's a sort of like a fence around the lawn. It's usually semicircular. It doesn't matter. The shape doesn't matter. There's gaps in the fence. There's I don't know, I suppose you could call them totem poles. There's posts and markers in the lawn. And if you stand in a certain place, not all of them are built like this, but some of them are built like this. There's certain places where you stand there, you can observe the solstices and the equinoxes because the pegs and markers and gateways and doorways and door frames and posts and lines and footpaths are laid out in particular ways. they're laid out as a astro calendar so that you can know when to plant your crops and when to harvest them and when to do things, go places and do stuff. It's all there, and people knew that. People have known that stuff for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. People have known that stuff, and you can learn about that. But you can't learn about it by going to Stonehenge in the UK. They don't tell you anything. They tell you stuff. We did the audio tour. It was nonsense. It was nonsense. Just so you know, because it's presented. It's not presented scientifically. It's all about mystic ancient people had things they did and stuff, and it's done in an artistic. They got artistic people to do it rather than technical. They need a different audio tour. They need a technical audio tour where people just actually explain what the things are. That would be better. The mystical stories and stuff. Well, there were stories, but they weren't the actual stories. I think that was the problem. Like some of it's true. Some of the stuff. See, none of it's memorable because it was just like a garbled presentation. I didn't like. It was pointless. And me and my mate were like, "That's so dumb. That's so dumb. We didn't learn anything. We didn't learn anything from it. It was good to see it because it was a thing. It's this ancient thing." It's this ancient thing. Me and my friend, our ancestors lived in England. Our ancestors lived there. It's part of history. It's part of the civilizational and cultural history of our ancestors. So it was interesting to go and see. But we didn't learn much. I don't know what else you can say. That's half an hour. It's a very boring video. I made a different video. Pardon me. I made another video earlier, and I was too animated, too personal, too energetic. It's not the right thing. It's not for people to see. All of these things, I make these videos as if I'm going to give them to somebody else. But then I just put them in my personal diary folder. It's what always happens because the stories are too personal. Well, I'm not going to talk about things that I don't believe in and are outside of my experience. What's the point of that? Yeah, I don't know. I think that's enough. That's good. I like it. I think I'm going to stop there because the story hasn't got too complicated. It's boring. It's boring, but it's true. It's real. It's not an act. It's genuine. Hope it's helpful. Take care. Have a nice day. See you later. Goodbye.